Welcome. Verse 39 to 53 is the section in chapter 2 about karma yoga. And before I speak about karma yoga, I would like us to begin a simple inquiry into nature of action, because karma yoga looks into action. It says that all our life, we are all experts at doing action. And when I say to you, let's begin an inquiry into action, then what kind of a question may come into your mind? Let's begin an inquiry into action. You may say things like, what actions should I do? What's the best action that is to be done? What are ineffective actions? What are effective actions? What actions will give me most amount of results with least amount of effort? So this is the kind of things that pops into our minds when we talk about action. But if you think about this kind of inquiry, when you ask, what action should I do? What action should I not do? What is the best kind of action? How do I know if it's the best kind of action that I'm doing in this world? With whatever, with your work, with your, even relationship, that's an action, because when you speak, it's an action. With business, with career, with, your household duties. So all of these questions, they pose two challenges. And according to karma yoga, whenever you do an action, it reinforces the very two things that are creating problems in life. First of all, any kind of action, whether it's a very, very educated and well-informed action or a highly inefficient action, it doesn't matter. They still create two kinds of issues. The first one in Sanskrit is called bhoktartva. Bhoktartva, which means it reinforces this enjoyer. This, I am an enjoyer, and I'm here to maximize my pleasures. I'm here to live out this life in joy, and I'm here to enjoy. I am here to enjoy. So it reinforces this individual who is getting things in life to continue living out as much joys and delights as possible for as long as possible with least amount of effort. And the second is it reinforces your kartartva, which is your doership. So in that similar, just like with joy, when you say, I am doing this effective action, or I am doing this ineffective action, it still maintains this sense of individual. Like I, the small person in this vast universe, am now doing this very good, dharmic, educated, well-informed action. So now when we often ask the question, what should I be doing? Okay. So look at this question. What should I be doing? The answer is going to be always the same. It doesn't matter what you're doing, as long as it's keeping with dharma, samanya dharma, of course. You don't want to do things that are injurious to yourself and to the other person. It doesn't matter what I should be doing. You do whatever is necessary to maintain the harmony in your life. This is very simple. We're not kids. We don't need to be told what should I be doing by now. The question then rather arises, in what way am I doing whatever I'm doing? With what attitude, with what kind of a manner am I doing what is to be done? This is what karma yoga wants to answer. So it basically says that if you, for example, look at yourself as, like a pen, you're a simple pen. Now, who's writing with this pen? Whatever you want to call it, Ishwara is writing with this pen, right? But the pen is what? An instrument, okay? So now the pen is writing a story of life. And the story of life, who's reading the story of your life? People around you, right? People that are close to you. And they're making comments about the story that is being written by the instrument. So now if somebody insults your story and they insult this instrument, is it really going towards you if you're just an instrument? Is the criticism and the praise really going towards you if you're just an instrument? No. It is going towards not I. It's going towards a much larger cause, which we call Ishvara, through which whenever I act and speak and do and say and not say and communicate, I am a mere instrument. This is karma yoga. So this means that it allows you seeing yourself as an instrument, like a pen, to do what is required to be done for the sake of preserving the harmony within your family and life and job and everything else that's calling for your attention, but at the same time, not taking things too personally, because I am like a pen. I'm just here to write the life story according to the little that I know and that I don't know. And if somebody has a problem, well, they have a problem with, right, not me. They have a problem with an instrument. The instrument is just doing whatever they can do. So karma yoga removes the sense of reinforcement that no matter what action you do, it will always create these two problems. It will reinforce the doer and reinforce the enjoyer. Now, when the doer and the enjoyer is reinforced, it creates attachment to the results. There's always a sense of I need to get things for me, the doer and the enjoyer. Now, when there's attachment, then there is an expectation how things are to work out in my life. There's a certain kind of a silent entitlement, what needs to happen, because I'm a dharmic person, I'm doing everything I can, and therefore I expect life to treat me well. Now, in reality, life, even if you're dharmic, doesn't treat you always very well, especially today, because back in the 1800s or 1700s, we had a much simpler world, maybe even earlier than that. But today, we have a cultural mix-up. We have ideas mix-up. We have all sorts of notions flying around in our head. So it's much harder to receive a predictable response from somebody because they could be carrying 10 different notions, which are totally not keeping with what you expect. So this means as I start to reinforce this individual, simultaneously the attachment starts to come into my mind, this insistence that something has to happen. And when it doesn't happen, what happens? It creates emotions of anger, frustration, and disappointment. And anger, disappointment, and frustration takes away my viveka, intellect. Without the intellect, I then have to get more pleasure into my life to cover up the pain of experiencing that life is not treating me very well. So it ends up being a constant cycle. Not only that, but if you look at the limitations of action, you have to be very clear. Suppose before COVID came, you spent 1 year building a business. Action, 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 enjoyment, action, enjoyment. COVID comes. Your business has no place in the market anymore. What happened to that 1 year of action? It's called the law of, well, it's not a law, it just was wasted. Because all of your actions was specifically for building a business. It didn't have any other benefits than just building a business. So now you can say truly, I wasted 1 whole year. 1 whole year of my life just went into building out of sincerity a business to help people, and it all got wasted. So this means if I didn't turn that 1 year worth of action into some kind of a spiritual benefit, then you can truly say, I wasted 1 year of my life. But if that 1 year worth of action wasn't just building a business or whatever it was, but it also had a spiritual benefit to it, and the action doesn't work out, COVID comes, then could you truly say that you wasted 1 year of your life? You can't. Now you can say, you know what? I spent 1 year and I learned so much about me. I learned patience. I learned to think. I learned to make deals. I learned to negotiate. I learned to, it made me a much better person. Only because of that 1 year, you did something extra, karma yoga, that without karma yoga, that 1 year now ends up being to a disappointment, frustration, anger. How could you? I worked so hard. Nothing happened. Why would you do this to me, Lord? Unfairness, disappointment, frustration, anger. All of these emotions now get attached because I missed out on the beauty, on the privilege of karma yoga, which we will talk about soon, what karma yoga is. I'm just showing you now what happens when you apply an action into the world without karma yoga. Okay? So it's also, when we say karma yoga, we tend to think this is probably not as prevalent in the West as it is in India, because in India we have the Vedas divided into Vachana Kanda, Karma Kanda, and Jnana Kanda. Now, Vachana Kanda is mostly, mantras. Karma Kanda is mostly rituals, actions, and Jnana Kanda is self-knowledge. Now, when Krishna says karma yoga, and then you kind of tie that in with karma kanda, most people would say, I know what karma yoga is. Karma yoga is associating and converting and turning my life into karma kanda, doing as many actions as possible. No, because what is the purpose of karma kanda in the Vedas? The purpose of karma kanda is to have a life here that is filled with delights and pleasures and hereafter. So there's a carryover. So this means that as a karma kandi, what is my only purpose of life? It is more or less to enjoy things in this world through actions. The main purpose of life becomes security, pleasures, and doing good. But why? Because they become the end of themselves. I want to enjoy my life here, and I want to enjoy my life after I leave this place. So this means that karma kandis, those who are doing actions for the sake of future results, how do they think? What does a karma kandi think? If I do X, I will get Y. If I do this, I will get that. Now, to tie this to the Western world, to relate for the rest of us, in the Western world, you have things like, if you apply this method, you will get this result in life. If you go to this dating course, you will, be able to be more successful at dating. If you go to this money course, you will have more chance of, making some sales. If you, go to X, you will get Y. So this means that there's nothing right or wrong about this. But you just have to look at where is this coming from. If I do this, I will get that. Therefore, what does that become? It becomes the end. And what does this become? It becomes the means to that. And how much of that are there in this world? Infinite. Because if I do that, I didn't get that. If I get that, I didn't get this. If I get this, I didn't get that. So it's an endless journey of do this to get that. So life becomes very busy. And in this sense, owing to this thinking in the karma kanda for one who does actions, what does this do to the mind eventually? It makes the mind, in one of the verses we said between 39 and 47, avyavasayatmika buddhi. Avyavasayatmika buddhi means it creates a fixed buddhi, a rigid buddhi, because I've thought about this for so long that now more or less I'm thinking, my God is the only God there is. My way is the only way there is. There is no other way than my way. Your ways are not right. My ways are alone correct. My religion alone is correct. So because the individual has thought about like this for such a long time, it reinforces this idea that my way alone is correct. Now, the verse 42 and 43 further analyzed why do people think like this? What is the cause of thinking that all I want is pleasures here and hereafter, which in turn creates attachment, which in turn creates emotion, which in turn takes away the buddhi, which in turn creates a fixed intellect, a rigid intellect, a shallow intellect in terms of what is possible. The reason is because of desires. The individual has so many desires because that's how we all get born. We get born and we see the world, and there's so much more opportunities, and everything that comes in from this world, you can shape and you can mold it and you can sculpt it in every way imaginable. And you can keep doing this for the rest of your life. Therefore, so many desires get created in the individual. And you say, okay, so if I have so many desires, then since I cannot fulfill all of my desires here in this world, then what do I have to do? Karma kanda, to perform rituals, to do actions so that I can have so many more desires in heaven, wherever that heaven happens to be. One person will have one heaven, another person will have a different heaven, depends on who you believe in. And because of so many desires, what happens then? My intellect gets clouded. I am unable to recognize the value of long-term actions. All the actions can do for me is give me my bhoktartva, my kartartva gets reinforced. So not only is the bhoktartva, kartartva reinforced in this life, but also in life afterwards. Therefore, this individual becomes what we call, uses words such as, what did Krishna say? Flowery words. They use flowery words. In other words, when they speak to you about all of these goals in heaven and the glories of the Lord and how you have to please him or her, it's very convincing, because a lot of minds are like this in this world. They do things because of so many desires. In fact, in the Upanishads, Katha Upanishad, I think there's a word bala. It says they are like children, full of desires, like children, looking for this, looking for that. I want to fulfill that desire because that's not good enough. Let me change something around. Let me get this desire instead. Constantly looking for the next hit, surrounding oneself in this world with as many pleasures and luxuries as possible. Why? Avyavasayatmika buddhi, because the brain has thought about it for so long that it's almost as good as brainwashed. And it's so hard to erase this, so hard to change this when the patterns, the neural patterns are so deeply ingrained in the mind that when you point this out, they don't want to hear you. They dismiss you. No. Let me give you the logic to reinforce let me show you how I am right. They don't want to hear you. They close themselves down because of avyavasayatmika buddhi, fixed intellect. Intellect that can only see this much. Anything around this scope doesn't get heard. It gets rejected. I could give you some examples. Ninu, can I just share? I'm not, okay. She was in my retreat. So very interesting. It was someone from a different institution who, spoke to my students in the retreat, and everyone was very nice. And I was eating about 6 o'clock evening, and my throat was a little bit sore. So that's when I take my time to not talk. And he comes up to me with a very nice, the most beautiful, amazing, etiquette, the culture, the etiquette, the social culture is there. Oh, I just want to say I spoke to most of your students and they are so beautiful, but I haven't spoken to the teacher. So I just want to congratulate you. What an amazing set of students you have. So pleasing, so nice. I can't fault him one bit. I say to him, thank you. Right now, I can't talk. My throat is sore. So that's about 5 words. Right now, can't talk. My throat is sore. About 8 words. That's it. Ordinary statement. What did this fella do? He goes up to one of my students and says, your guru, I don't know, I'm paraphrasing, your guru has a sore throat because he doesn't believe in Krishna. Look at that. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what you say. You can say this or that as long as it's from Advaita Vedanta, and there are Advaita Vedantins because Udupi is a lot of Advaitins there. No matter what you say, it's going to get misinterpreted according to avyavasayatmika buddhi. Unable to see anything around just through my single scope of what I can see. This is normal. As a teacher, I see this all the time. That's why it's not surprising to me. I can see on your faces, it's like, huh? But it's so normal for me that the beauty of teaching is it builds so much strength in you that you're like, this is beautiful demonstration of what the scriptures are talking about. You see? So it gives me context, and I'm so glad these things happen, because now I'm not just speaking about somebody over there. I have, right, first-hand experience. Therefore, it's so much easier. Now, what do they do? They use flowery words. Flowery words, that means they sound good, they sound very convincing. They will sell a lot of, they will sell their pitch, and a lot of people will listen, but it's empty. It doesn't have something to back it up. It doesn't have substance. It doesn't have any kind of evidence to back it up. Therefore, these are the karma kandis, and karma yoga. Therefore, now we can move on. Helps you to overcome this habit to turn all of these opportunities into mere actions. The question then comes is then, how do I benefit from my actions? Yes, we all got to do actions, no doubt. We just analyze the nature of actions, but we can't stop there. The question is, how do I turn my actions into a double benefit? And verse 47, which is where we stopped, Krishna pointed out that you have choice over what is to be done. It says, kartum shakyam, akartum shakyam, and anyata kartum shakyam. That means at any moment, I can do what is to be done. I can do something different. I can do not do anything, or I can do something different. I can always do something, kartum shakyam. I can not do anything, akartum shakyam, or I can do something different, anyata kartum shakyam. Are these three ever denied to you? You cannot think of a single moment when they're denied to you, unless avyavasayatmika buddhi. Unless I've been taught and trained to think within the scope of a very small understanding, then I cannot go outside, cannot penetrate what else is possible. So the more we expand our intellect, the more our free will simultaneously expands. In this sense, free will is limited only as much as my understanding of the world is limited. So Krishna then follows up and says, if you do have at any moment what is to be done, I can do something, not do something, or do something different, then where is my scope of no control or little control? He continues and says, in the results that I get. And this, he then continues in verse 48, which we will now go to, unless you have some comments. Verse 48.
I think it's important what you said, in the moment where your emotions take over, that habitual action usually occurs, reaction. Just recognizing that those habits and questioning them in that very moment. Why do I react this way? Is the key to unlocking it, and then questioning that and expanding. I don't have to react this way, etc.
This is wonderful. So this means that, see, it's very easy to give oneself an impression that nothing's wrong with me, that I am, well educated and well informed. So all you have to do is just surround yourself in a perfect environment behind the computer, control the environment, what food goes in my mouth, what I hear, what I don't hear. And it seems like everything's fine. I'm very smart. I've got no issues. I've got no problems at all. But the moment you go out, then you really open up the doors to see where you're being triggered, why you're being triggered, where's the reoccurring pattern of being triggered, what stories am I telling myself because of this situation? Could I change my story around? What is inside my story that is making it so unpleasant? What variables, what slight modifications could I make the story more empowering? How can I change this experience from discouraging, challenging my self-worth, challenging my how I look at myself, into one where it reminds me of my self-worth, of my value in this world. For example, when this fella, said that, the story about throat and not believing in Krishna, then one has a response. One can either go, oh, I'm being challenged. Maybe he's right. Maybe I don't have, value in myself. Now my value plunges. Or you can just say, hey, let me remember who I am and what I am as a relative person. Let me remember what I am serving, I am striving, I am giving, I've got so much. I have Vedanta in my life, I have a guru in my life, I have persistence, relative dedication. I have the, ability to organize things, to manage the whole thing. I'm a contributor. Remember your self-worth in these moments. Don't allow anyone to question your self-worth or to try to probe you, touch your core. And if your core gets touched, then that's another wonderful opportunity to say, but wait, why am I choosing to be like this, to feel about myself like this, when I can equally choose to see myself in a different way? I can either do something different, or not do anything at all. 3 possibilities are always there. So when you get questioned, when somebody touches your core, that is a wonderful learning opportunity, Ishwara's gift, to say, okay, so maybe I should take a look at myself just for a moment. Maybe I can turn these situations as reminders. When something unpleasant happens, maybe that's my alarm clock to take a look at myself. That's a nice attitude. Now, in the retreat, I said, but how do you separate, I know, Carrie, how do you separate when there's a harsh delivery? And because it's not always true that a person says something and it's useless. It's not always true. There's some value in it. So how do you make that shift, that distinction between learning something but not being affected, not letting your core, your worth, your value being compromised? And I said, well, you have to look at that. The person has delivered one package, and you have to be able to, like, taking the, that cover over the rice, whatever you call it, you're able to separate very, very delicately, take away the harsh delivery, the dismissal, the rejection, the not recognizing you as a person, and take those small components and give it a thought. And this is amazing, because you protect yourself from the uneducated delivery, but at the same time, you take something and you consider this is Ishwara's gift. This is Ishwara's prasada. This is a gift. I can't reject it, because if all that is here is Ishwara, how can I now say this is it's useless? This is amazing. Turn every unpleasant situation into your alarm clock to look into yourself. No need to, kind of sit down. Okay, now let's look at myself. As Lorena says, when the situation confronts you, that's my alarm clock. Okay, what's being challenged right now? How am I looking at this? And why am I looking at this in the way that I'm looking at this? Why can I not look at it differently? Why do I have to keep on looking at it in the same way how I've done it before, over and over again? Why can I not just take one leap of faith, one small difference today, and choose to look at it slightly differently, in a way that empowers me, that strengthens me, that gives me, reminds me that I'm one of the manifestations of Ishvara, not isolated, never outside the order, and I matter in this universe as much as anyone else. I am a co-creator as much as everyone else is. If I'm one of the waves in this ocean, how can I say that the other wave is higher or lower than me if we're both entirely dependent upon the ocean? If we breathe the ocean's water, we need the ocean's laws. We both get delivery from the ocean. We are both sustained by the ocean. We're both born from the ocean, go inside the ocean. How can I say that one person is higher or lower here? Let me get my facts straight for a while. Move on. Just 1 second worth of self-reflection, move on, like that. So it's true. This means that being out in the world is the greatest time, the greatest opportunity to strengthen yourself, to come closer to the Lord. It really is. I don't know how it's possible behind a computer or inside a house because it's all comfortable. It's a comfort zone inside a house. And a house gives you, certain comforts, but comfort isn't necessarily growth. So what do you want? Growth or comfort? It's up to you. I can do something, not do something, or do something different. Life is always asking these three. If I choose one, I can do something, I can do something, I can do something, I can do something. 50 years later, I can do something. What about the other two? Especially I can do something different. That means I only lived 1/3 of life possibilities. Therefore, this is a privilege given to us, and karma yoga makes it much easier to, as we will see in verse 48, to look at both the ups and the downs with certain equanimity. Before I go there, Carrie?
Well, I was just going to say it kind of goes along with what you were saying about, using every opportunity that you have to learn from and to improve yourself. And last week I've been reading a book. It's called Bhagavad, and there was a commentary in it, and it had a phrase that I kind of didn't like very well. Pratipaksha bhavana, and what it means that whenever in all your activities, you'll feel a little something coming up into your mind, and maybe it's anger or jealousy or greed or it, all kinds of emotions or feelings. And as soon as you feel something that doesn't feel right, you counter that with an opposite thought. That you have that prati against, prefix, and so you go against it, and you make a practice of doing this. And I was a little bit resistant. I kind of didn't. There was something about it I didn't like at first, but then I thought, well, I'll just give it a try. And so whenever I'd feel a little something coming up into my mind, a thought that it didn't really go along with what I really thought would be right to do, I'd put a different thought in there about it. I've just been finding it really interesting to do all week, even towards things that I'm attracted to too much. And I'm thinking, oh, that's not really what I shouldn't really be attracted to that. I don't want to get attached to that kind of action. And so I'd put a negative, kind of a pratipaksha bhavana on it. And it kind of goes along with what you're talking about, I think.
It does.
David.
So what Carrie is talking about is because we're used to settling for what's easy. Now Pratipaksha Bhavana challenges you to choose the right but the hard way. There's an easy way, easy left, or the hard right. And the hard right involves me to intercept this comfort zone, to dismiss something, and then to move on, because the mind wants completion. It wants to kind of remain, in its status quo, that it knows what the world is about. But the truth is, it doesn't know what the world is about, because the world's changing. So it says that the moment you have some negative thought or some disempowerment or something that's probably could use some optimizing, then intercept it. And it takes, I tell you, it takes effort. It really does. You notice it. Even to show you how hard it is, if you've ever been sick, how is your knowledge, this Vedantic knowledge, when you're when you're sick on the bed and really just sneezing, and how is the knowledge like clear? Is it like in front of you, or it's nowhere to be seen? Even though you've got all of the resources to you, it still becomes quite hard. Now, like that, it also becomes quite hard to apply this opposite thought that is slightly more informed, slightly more fair, and more keeping with the facts. So that thought that is more keeping with the facts, that's called Pratipaksha Bhavana. And the reason why it's hard is because the world doesn't train us to do this. Especially in the culture, depends on what culture you're at. You just a dismissal, yeah, and you agree because you want some love, so you don't challenge the person because you want to prefer rather being, I want to be liked, I want to be validated, I want to be accepted. And if I challenge this, then I may not have these three. Therefore, it takes some character and some leadership to say, well, that's one way of looking at it. But another way of looking at it is like this. And then you think of it. And you help yourself, right? You help yourself to be assertive, and you also help the other person to challenge them, to challenge their thinking, because they may now affect other people who you don't know. I mean, we talk about, the world is in such a state like this or that, but then what am I doing about it? It all starts with you. Small things like that, challenge once in a while somebody's belief, and that can go a long way.
In this section that you talked about, is it not important to actually not only develop an opposite thought to whatever you're thinking about, if it's not good for yourself, but also developing an action to it? Sometimes we just develop a thought but not act on it.
Yeah.
So I think the action is important to go along with it.
Very much.
We may think something is nice, and then when we go there, something is really not nice, and we don't really want to do the action to make it opposite.
Good. Yeah. Good. And at the same time, you see, you have to also assess how comfortable are you doing that, because I know it's so easy to say these things online, but the brain has this sort of comfort zone and says, this is going on, and it just chooses not to do anything. So you can say to yourself, what little, like very, very little, can I do about this right now? Could I just get up, at least to acknowledge that this thought has happened? Could I, take a walk and refresh my mind? Could I, could I just say to this person, I want to speak to you? Now, it may not go very well, could it? Because they may not even be there to listen to you, but at least you did your part. And that becomes now much easier next time to apply another action. So like this, you tell yourself, let me do something different about this. Just like, like, for example, I went after the retreat to Chinmaya in Kerala, Adi Shankara Nilayam, and it was so good over there. I loved it. People, there were 60 students who are doing 1-year course. I saw Gayatri there, and we had so much fun. And I met so many of her friends, and we just became just really good friends. I was like, I don't want to leave here. This is so cool. And there was a Swami doing Katha Upanishad and Bhagavad Gita, and Ramayana was at the end. But this time I said, I choose to, before I go to the center, I want to change my attitude, how I approach Swamis. Because before, there was a sense of, Swami is this huge character, right? And there was this huge character, there was this distance. And I said to myself, let me just look at the facts here. We're both human beings. We're both teachers. We're both our manifestations of Ishvara. We're both doing the best that we can. We're both doing our roles in a very short amount of time on Earth. And I choose to be more, more like open and friendly toward the Swami, and just talk at the level of just basic core human being. And I asked him, after the retreat, not after, but after the first session, I said to him, I asked some questions, but then I asked the last question. So what do you do for fun? Right? What do you do when you're not doing all of this? And he says, I like to watch Harry Potter. And that brought a smile to both of our faces. And we connected at that basic core human level. Now, why did this happen? Because I already thought about it. Let me talk to a person. Let me not just put them up there and, end of the day, walk away and going, he's a Swami and I'm just this human being. So like this, as Rani says, right? Before something happens, you prepare yourself. You prepare and you choose to do something different. And it becomes so much easier to do it when you're actually confronted with the situation live. So next time, like that, what different do I choose to do when I go to the shopping mall? Will I see these as human beings, or will I see them as divinity, expressions of divinity, as pens walking around in the store? Pens. You could do that, like that. So every action, every opportunity, every moment is calling to do something fresh. Every moment. This is amazing. Every day you wake up, you're given a chance to do something fresh, brand new, for the first time ever, different. So now how can I say possibly my life is not working out? Isn't that absence of pratipaksha bhavana? Isn't that just choosing to do the same thing I've done before? Absolutely. Now, at the beginning, it's hard to make that decision. It's hard to make that shift and say, I'm going to do something different. It's hard. I get it. But slight, that's why I say slight action, not a big action, very, very slight action. It has a compounding effect, like putting $100 in your bank account at 5% interest. 40 years later, you're probably a millionaire because of that interest rate, like a compounding effect. So it's not true that your progress is slow. It's not true that, things are not happening. Where were you 2 years ago? Can you remember that? How were you 2 years ago? How was your mental state 2 years ago compared to now? If you're not connecting to this question, maybe 5 years ago. How was it 5 years ago compared to now? Sometimes we have to stop and appreciate. It may not feel like I'm growing, but I'm growing. You really
It's
are.
like night and day.
Yes, go ahead, Greg.
It's like night and day, difference.
Yeah, it's literally like night and day, really.
Mhm.
So this means once in a while we have to recognize I am capable of transformation. I'm capable of change. This is actually going on. It's happening for me. Otherwise, we just say they're happening, they're changing, they're growing, but I'm a nobody. It's not true. That's what I meant initially. Where is your self-worth? Where is the self-value? You are growing. Otherwise, we forget about these things and it affects our ability to learn, to ingest new information, because we say, what's the point? I'm not changing. I've been doing this for so long. Stop and recognize you are changing. You just have to discover where the changes are. Okay. Now, the key, the next verse 48, it says, how do I navigate myself in this world without getting too moved by the tides, the high tides and the low tides, the goods and the bads of life? Okay, let's see what verse 48 says. Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate.
Remaining steadfast in yoga, Dhananjaya, Arjuna, perform actions, abandoning attachment and remaining the same to success and failure. This evenness of mind is called yoga.
2 words, he says, evenness of mind and samatvam yoga uchyate, which is evenness of mind, and siddhi, asiddhi, samatvam. In other words, same in success and failure. Now, if you look at this question, being the same in success and failure, I mean, they're opposite, right? Success is opposite to failure. You cannot quite be the same towards both because they both call for different responses. Otherwise, you'll be, people can't read you. They'll think you're weird and you're just not going to be human if you have sameness, if you take this literally. So you have to take this with an implied meaning, which is called lakshyartha. And we said that no matter what happens, the results are not entirely in your hands. So what this specifically means is that even if you do your best and you come from an educated standpoint, you come from an informed perspective, even then, there's full possibilities that can come to you. This is a fact of life. Now, if something, suppose you get more than you wanted or equal to, there's a risk. The risk is that it can create a sense of a pride in a person, and it can disconnect you from other people because other people are listening to your success and they're hearing how you're thriving. And if you're not sensitive enough, they may not be in a very kind of a confident state of mind in that moment, in that life that they're in. And so it can make them feel smaller. So it ends up creating jealousy and disconnect. It actually breaks down relationships. So this means that even if you're successful, you can still lose perspective. You can still go a little bit, sidetracked yourself. So this means any kind of success, I still have to look at and share my learnings with the person, talk at their level, and still recognize that it's not all of my doing. I'm just a pen. And in so doing, there are so many people that have contributed to my work, which is always the case. There is the infrastructure, there's a government, there are people, there are employees, all of them contributed to your work. So I can't entirely claim ownership of this result. In that sense, it makes you, slightly more kind of composed in reference to your successes. Is there something that you've been really successful in life? Is there something that you've really, really been successful in life or decently successful in life? I know there is. Maybe you don't remember. See, from your standpoint, it's probably nothing. From somebody else's standpoint, it's quite a bit. But there is. For example, you've had children, you've grown up a family, you bought a house, you found a job, you're managing your life. These are all successes. They're relative successes. Okay, so in so doing, I recognize this is indeed, a gift. This is Ishvara's gift, and this gift is, I'm entrusted this body, and this body needs to be used like a pen to serve the world, because that's how you get more punyam. By the way, you're not just doing it for, for others' sake. You're doing it for your sake too. You have to keep on getting new punyam. It's not like, oh, I've done this 20 years ago. I was a really good lawyer 20 years ago, or a doctor, and I've got 5 certificates, gold medals. Okay, that's 20 years ago. Your punyam has expired a long time ago. You need to keep on doing more things, more things. This is how the laws are. There's no cheating. There's no coming around it. So as we keep on doing more things and being successful, we keep on just simply recognizing this is Ishvara's offering. Thank you. But I'm going to continue doing what is to be done. So there's no space for, I was successful. This is great, but the laws are simply there to let you know that, hey, your punyam is limited. And you need to keep on earning more punyam. Now, like that, equally, when I get less than I wanted, or totally opposite, then where's the danger in that? There's an equal danger in that. The danger could be, you lose your self-value, or you think the world is unfair, or it's not working out for me, or I'm not meant to be successful, or other people are always more successful than I am. So it turns into this self-talk, a critical self-talk. In that case, also, I have to stop myself. How do I stop myself? Because I recognize the laws are not there to, punish me. It's a impersonal order, as I said before, where there's so many variables that are contributing to your life as it is now. This is a fact. Today, there are so many more variables that are delivering you the kind of life than we had 500 years ago. And you're just not able to see them all because there's too many variables. Therefore, Krishna says to this, Samatvam yoga uchyate. He says, because I recognize that all 4 are possibilities of life, that's a fact, all 4 are facts. For that reason, I have an equanimity to all 4, because life is simply not designed to give me 2 of them. I got more of or equal to. It has to also give you less of or totally opposite. In fact, you and I can make a little deal right now. Guaranteed, life will give you less than or totally opposite than you wanted. Could you agree with that? Guaranteed. You will do something great. You will be coming from a very good place. You will be coming from a wise place, from an authentic place, a genuine place, from an educated space, and you will give the best that you can. Guaranteed, you will get opposite than you expected or less than you expected. Might as well just own up to the facts right now. That's how we have an equanimous mind when it finally does come, because you've prepared yourself. Therefore, samatvam yoga uchyate, I have an equanimity to all 4, in siddhi and asiddhi. Therefore, it says, siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva. That means I have an equanimous mind to success and failure of life. Why towards failure? Is failure really failure if it's done under karma yoga spirit? No, because Karma Yoga is a platform where learning takes place. I now know what doesn't work. I can try something different next time. Thank you. You've just saved me so much time from being frustrated in the future. So you might as well just go through that pain now so that you're free in the future. You know, in the Vedas, we also say that even when you enjoy yourself because of this punya papam, you know, this system of punya papam, even when you enjoy yourself, that's going to come to an end because punyam doesn't last. But even when you suffer, that too is going to come to an end because papam doesn't last. So this means when you go through pain, when you get less than or opposite to, that means that your punyam is being exhausted and there's less chance of your papam is being exhausted and there's less chance of that papam coming to you in the future. So now, is papam good or bad if you look at it from that standpoint?
It can be a catalyst for growth, the moment of papam.
Yeah, definitely.
Through change and growth, like changing the way you react.
Perspectives, change of perspectives. But if you look at life like this, then if it's consisting of punyam and papam, and if you get papam now, then you're not going to get that papam in the future. So now, can you really call that papam bad? Well, it changes your perspective just a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a saying that goes, you've got to be cruel, be kind. In some aspects of life, on the long run, it's a kind result, but the act might be cruel. Sometimes the papam, you say the papam is good in the end of the day. And you realize, you know, we believe that papam is not good, you know, so punyam is always good. But to be, even papam, initial papam can become punyam.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, you've gone through a hard time and you've, you know, looked at your life, you looked into your conditioning, and it was a painful process. You went inwards, introverted. We say there's 4 stages in life. Okay, we all start out very Vedanta is a nice model. It says we all start out with a sense of victim mode. You know, this is happening to me. I am being punished. Victim, victim, victim. Now, through this victim mode, you develop enough sensibility to start to question yourself. And that second stage, you become an introvert. Now, in an introvert stage, what happens is you start to question, is this really true about me? And it becomes a very kind of an inwards journey, which is not easy. This is, you could call papam, right? It's not easy because you could be out there enjoying yourself, but you're reflecting upon yourself. Now, most people think this is the last stage in spirituality. You know, I'm going through a hard time, you know, I'm working on myself and I'm introverted and I'm all self-reflection and self-inquiry, and it's all kind of here, me, you know, I don't need the world anymore. The world is there, out there. They're just there to distract me. There's nothing out there. I'm here, I'm meditating. I'm really thinking about everything. I'm thinking about Ishvara and Brahman and who I am. Okay, it's all here. Most people stop at stage 2. It's only the second stage. The third stage is after, now this is, by the way, the stage of typical spiritual person, wearing the clothes and they're fully spiritual, right? They will have friends and they will have, you know, very kind of high standards, and you'll go, wow, what an amazing person. That's only second stage. The third stage of life is you come out of that. You come out of that. Now, when you come out of that, you also relinquish your spiritual clothes. Normal person, back in the world, ordinary person, nobody even recognizes you as being spiritual. You're speaking normal words, no more this spiritual, you know, lingo or these, you know, whatever they do nowadays to show off, you know, that they are this identity. Ordinary person, working, ordinary clothes, and people can relate with you. You'd speak to people like down-to-earth person. No one would have any clue what you just come out of. The second stage, which can be a little bit lonely. The third stage, you come back into socialize. The final stage, if one chooses to, because you've got so much experience and thought about your processes and your connections in this world, you now become an inspiration for other people. You go and start to share your knowledge and experience with other people. And that's the final stage of life. You cannot go higher than that. You just simply inspire others, small groups, 1 or 2, 3 or 4 or 5, whatever it is. You inspire other people because you've sorted out yourself. You went through the victim mode. Then you went through the self-introspection mode. You went through the mode of, looking at your own weaknesses, acknowledging your strengths, pointing and being honest to the people, no longer pretending to be some hotshot, sharing your vulnerabilities, no more need to stay private and hide and pretend like I'm some, high person of high knowledge. No, ordinary person. And through that, people can relate to you. Therefore, you become an inspiration to others. Now, was this easy? Yes and no. There was some punyam and some papam. So through this stage, you come out to the top. And they say that your life really starts to, most of us will know this more than I would, after 40. That's when you really start to enjoy life. 20s, how was 20s for you? 20s. Oh, it's a chaos, right? Chaos, almost. A little bit chaos, a little bit sensibility, but very, very zigzaggy. Then 30s came. How was 30s for you? That's when they say you're starting to settle, right? You're starting to discover and settle more in what you discover between 20 and 30. So it's still a little bit movement, but you're settling deeper as a capable person in this world. Then 40 and 50 onwards, life just becomes more and more. You figured a lot of things out, and you're able to carry yourself forward quite sensibly and strongly. So these are all stages, and they bring punya and papam. So you can't categorically say it's like only punyam and it's only papam. It's always a mixture. Okay. Now, knowing that life is a mixture, therefore, samatvam yoga uchyate, I can have equanimity to all four, because why are you here? Because all 4 stages you have gone through. You have gone through being a victim, introversion, coming out. In fact, you can't put categorically, it's first stage, second stage. They're all kind of mixed up a little bit. You cannot say it's only this stage and that stage. Sometimes there's a victim mode in the last stage and you have to solve it. And so it's all 4 stages. And they're part of life. And no one's free from these 4 stages. So now, can I say that my life is supposed to be all glorious and spectacular, and it's all supposed to work out? I'm supposed to have successful children, successful health, and I'm supposed to remember and never forget, and supposed to have a lot of high confidence and a lot of value in myself, and always know what to say and when to say it and how to say it, and have all the patience in the world and have all of the energy in the world, and always wake up early and have my spiritual sadhana to the moment all worked out. Is that possible? No. I hope he's saying no. That's why samatvam yoga uchyate. This is life. All 4 possibilities are making up this life. Okay. Now, why does this person have equanimity towards success and failure? Well, because we said the laws are impartial. They're unbiased. Now, I'll give you some examples of what it means to say impartial or unbiased. Suppose we have 2 people. One of them is a thief and one of them is a saint. Now, a saint drops maybe a statue that they need for teaching, a teaching tool, and they cannot go without it. They absolutely need the statue to teach. And they drop the statue and it falls. The thief drops a tennis ball. It's also going to fall. Could you say that the laws, because the saint is doing so much important work and they need to continue their teaching, the laws are going to make an exemption for the saint? Can you say that? No. That's what we call laws are fair. They really are fair because they don't make an exemption for anyone. They're not going to say, the thief is, whatever he drops, it's no problems there. He's not doing any good works anyway. But the saint, very holy character, we need to make sure that that vase floats slowly down. It doesn't break. It just stays midair. Doesn't work like that. Now, if the saint is not careful, they could turn this into a misinterpretation. This is where it all goes wrong. And they could say, no, you don't understand. My vase fell and it didn't break. This is because God is protecting me. Right? Oh, yeah, we heard this before. No. What does a saint really know about quantum physics, science, laws of gravity? Hey, this is just a belief that we say to cope, to kind of give us ourselves some kind of meaning. But it's the laws are laws. They're impartial. If there are two saints, one of them is from the West and one of them is from India, are the laws going to favor one of them? No. If the saints have a complex, a personality complex, they would definitely say something about it. They would say, no, the Indian saint is, sharing the Vedas. This one's sharing the Plato and Aristotle. So Vedas have more impact. Therefore, my book should be imperishable to fire. Now let's test it out. And we put both books in fire. No. My book is imperishable to fire. I don't need to test. I have faith. Don't work like that. You put both books in the fire, they both burn. The laws don't favor books. They don't favor who gets bitten by a mosquito, which I used previously. You have two people, okay? Now, if the saint doesn't treat the mosquito who has malaria with proper medicine, the saint's going to die. Now, the saint can make a story and say, no, I don't need this because God is protecting me. And, the rain is coming. And, the church is filling up with rain. And, the helicopter comes and say, hey, come, we're here to take you away. I don't need, God is protecting me. And then again, another boat comes. No, thank you. I don't need help. God is protecting me. But the water is getting higher and higher. Eventually, the saint drowns. Now he's in heaven at the border control. And the border control asks, what happened? Yeah, I died. How come I'm a saint? What happened? Yeah, you're taking care of me. I'm teaching you all words. I'm teaching the words of God. And God says, you idiots, we sent you 2 helicopters in a boat and you took no action. You can choose whatever you want. Yeah, whatever story you've got around these things, it doesn't make any difference. The laws are impartial. Therefore, samatvam yoga uchyate. I can have equanimity towards success and failure. If I fail, I can do something about it. If I have success, I can share my success and inspire other people. Rama and Krishna, Lord incarnate, could they convince Duryodhana and Ravana to change their minds? No matter how hard they tried. Because Ravana and Duryodhana were bound by their psychological laws. They spent 20 plus years embedding a certain amount of beliefs in their minds. Avyavasayatmika buddhi. You can't change neurology of the brain overnight, even if you're the Lord himself. So that means even the Lord cannot violate his own rules. Lord incarnate cannot violate his own rules that he is the creator of. That's what it means to say laws are impartial. It's never personal. It's never targeting you. It's never there to punish you or reward you. They just have to work in order to sustain the livelihoods of all of us here, so we can share this planet in the way that we are. How I use that, how I align myself to that, is a kind of results I get. And even if I do align myself to that, what kind of results can I get? More of, less of, equal to, or opposite? That's a fact across all cultures, across all times, that will never not be true. Therefore, how does this now change your perspective towards life? Think about that. Now, talk to Gautam. You have a hand up.
Yeah, absolutely. What you are saying, and it has to be that way. It cannot be any other way, that the laws have to be impartial. I just want to go just a step beyond that. Everything starts with faith. If there was no faith, without faith, we will not be at this class. because everything has to start with faith and belief. Having faith also is a part of the law only. If you don't have the faith, the laws are not with you.
Yeah.
So even if a saint says that my Lord will protect me, that also faith, the Lord will come in for protection.
Yes, yes, lovely. So in fact, it's so true. Everything really does start with faith. In fact, you are forced to have faith in the driver that's driving opposite you every day. They could in any moment have a heart attack and swirl towards your direction. We have no choice. Everything starts out with faith, and through faith, we're able to start to get more reasonable, more rational, and more more technical, with more understanding with this world. Otherwise, without faith, I will not be on the road. If I'm not on the road, I cannot get to my teacher. If I can't get to my teacher, I can't learn. The whole thing falls apart. Therefore, yes, the saint, like anyone, has to start. Your first step is start with faith. So faith is a teaching. It's a tool. It's a means by which I move further in life. It says that at the beginning, I need a lot of faith. But as I get more educated, faith starts to, it's done its job. It's done what it was meant to do. But now I depend more on what I see out of my own clarity. That's why we say, what is it? Tattva Bodha. You need Shraddha, Mumukshutvam, Viveka, okay, Shamadis, Shatka Sampatihi. All of these, one of them is having faith. That means trust for long enough until the changes start to take place in your own life. That means for long enough, I have to put aside my own, my own voices, my own judgments. This is not for me. This is not working out. This is not good for me. There's something better. I have to put this aside for a while, and until you really start to connect with the knowledge. And when you start to connect with the knowledge, there's no words to express that, how amazing that is. When this knowledge finally starts to own you, when you start to get drowned in this Vedantic knowledge, that is the best thing. No matter what model in the world you see, you're able to bring that and look that through the eyes of Vedanta. Everything begins to make sense. No matter what culture you walk into, what religion you see all thousands of rituals. You're able, through your own models of Vedantic models, you're able to put that in the right place. You're able to see what belongs where, not judging, not discarding, just see, this has a place. Arti thinks about the Lord in the times of trouble. Artharti thinks about the Lord constantly, because they know there's so many unknown variables in this world. And so I have to constantly have this transaction with the Lord. Lord, I will do this for you, but please help me in this, help me in this, help me in that. Jijinatsu eventually asks the question, who is this Lord that I've been praying to for all this time? What is the nature of this Lord, of this Ishvara? How do I recognize Ishvara? I no longer want Ishvara's gifts. I want Ishvara himself, as a Jijinatsu. Having asked this question, having the faith, it all started with faith, as Gautam says, eventually I come to recognize that I and Ishvara are one. That all started with faith. Therefore, through Vedantic models, you're able to recognize, why is this like this? Why is that like this? And everything makes sense. And there's no better place to live than being able to understand why is the world the way that it is. It just doesn't go over your head anymore. It becomes clear, crystal clear. And that brings so much contentment, so much peace, so much tranquility, so much understanding and patience. You don't have to be told anymore, be a good person. You understand, if I'm not compliant to Dharma, then who's going to pay the consequences? I will. I have no choice. Vedantic knowledge, it truly is the peak of philosophy, the peak of religion, the peak of human thought, the peak of, it's just the knowledge of the universe, the knowledge of all that is. And somehow, through your weaving and through your, through your journey, you have come and reached that knowledge. That is a mystery. Indeed. And you stay long enough and you have the strength enough to want to connect, because most people come, they leave. Out of curiosity, they will come, they will leave. Out of 100 people, they will hear Vedanta. 20% will come. 20 will come. Those 20 who come, 10 will go away within a couple of weeks because the high has waned away. The 10 who are remaining, 9 or maybe 8 will listen, but they won't necessarily connect to the knowledge. The 2 will listen and it will click like that, very fast. The 8 will have to keep on listening for some more time because they have a different life. Now, suppose you're one of those 8. Does that mean that the 2 are better than you? Don't think like this. It's got nothing to do with better or worse. It's just a matter of everyone gets there eventually. It's like driving on a road, and you're all going on this 5-hour road. And sometimes you're ahead of one car, and then 1 hour later, you're behind, and the other car is in front of you, and you're all trying to get to New York or Sydney. And throughout the journey, you see constantly, sometimes you're behind, sometimes they're in front, sometimes they're too close, so you overtake them. And now you suddenly wander away, see some mountain, and you fall behind. Now they're in front, but you're all going towards the same city, and you get there. So imagine now going, oh, this driver is better than I am. How is that going to be pleasant if you're driving like that? This driver is better than I am. It takes all enjoyment away. So there's no need to compare to others' brilliance. Others' brilliance, they deserve it. That much we recognize. They deserve it. But remember your brilliance too. What is your brilliance? I would like you to discover this after the class ends. What are my 5, I'll give you easy. What are my 3 brilliances? Find out your 3 brilliances, your 3 things that you shine in, that you have perhaps been taken for granted for a long time, and they become so normalized you forgot. Find 3 brilliant things about you. Okay. Now there's one more law called law of karma. Law of karma is known to everyone. Why? Yes, eating, sleeping, and daydreaming. This is your brilliance, Ravikant. Okay. Now there's one more law called law of karma. And law of karma is something that every person instinctively knows. It is basically where you know that I have to do this to get that. If you want to become doctor, do you go and study archaeology? No. So you go and study archaeology class and they say, oh, welcome to archaeology. So what do you want to become? A doctor. Okay. What are you doing here? I want to become a doctor. That's why I come to archaeology class. Yeah, but this is the wrong class. You need to go to an anatomy class. No, I don't know what you're on. I'm in the right class. I'm here to study to be a doctor. What I'm gonna do is, it's like, this guy's cuckoo. You instinctively know, if I want a certain result, I have to do this. If I want to go to the gym, do you look at the sky? No, you go, if you want muscles, you don't look at the sky, you go to the gym. If you want a promotion, you don't go jumping like a kangaroo, you go and talk to the right people. So everyone instinctively knows this cause and effect relationship. If I want something to happen in my life, I have to do certain things that are connected to that which I want. This is inbuilt in all people. And this is a law. And this law, without it, you couldn't make the right decisions. You couldn't succeed in life. You couldn't do anything. But because it's a law, we all instinctively know that I have to do certain things to get a certain result. We take it for granted, but it's a law. Therefore, law of karma allows you to make the right decisions to get a certain result in your life. But now, why do we doubt this law? That's the question. Why do we doubt the law of karma? The reason is because we look at this law of cause and effect within a very short amount of time, like 80-year period. And we cannot quite explain, I am doing so much work and I'm not getting so many results. And this person is doing so little work and they're getting all of the results I could possibly dream of. And so we say, my results, my prayers, my actions are unfit, they're not working, my prayers are not working, my actions are not working, my life is not working. No, the laws work across millennia, not across 50 or 30 or 10 years. Sometimes what you do today will only fructify 50 years from now, or maybe even the next life. You don't know, but this is how it works. So you have to look at these laws of cause and effect as not bound to a certain period of 80 years, but rather stretching much, much larger than that. The moment you bind it to 80 years, I tell you, it brings so much psychological pain. I'll give you an example. I know one person who is very old now and has dementia. And they've been in their spiritual journey for a long time, but they never accepted karma. One single thing they never accepted. Now, as dementia started to set in, they started to justify this as, I am suffering in this life. I am, I'm being punished in this life. I am so unlucky in this life. This is happening to me, and God is unfair. And why is this happening? And it brings so much added layers of psychological pain because they're unable to trace a much larger vision of life. Their entire vision is just bound to their 80 years now. And they are suffering so much because of this alone. So it's not a small thing. It's not just a theory that we say, 80 years. The moment you understand that this law of karma expands much larger, it brings clarity to life. It brings clarity. It eases pain. It makes everything simpler to understand, easier to understand. And this is unique to the Vedas. So it brings psychological healing. Another reason is because of what we call samashti karma. You and I are born in this generation, but we're all sharing what's called samashti karma. So this means even if you are doing the right actions to get the right results, what is one layer that you have to still put up with? It's the samashti karma. So this means that, for example, today most people talk about, not very intelligent things, right, for the most part. But suppose you're born in a period where people talk about, or a town or a city where people talk about intelligent things. Wouldn't that make it easier for you to naturally also become part of that conversation? Absolutely. So this means because we're collectively sharing the world that we're living in today, you also have to bear that yourself. So if the world is talking about politics and blaming others and how it's all falling apart, then you keep on hearing this. And it makes it much harder for you to remain positive and to remain optimistic and to remain objective. That's called samashti. Samashti means total. That means the total karmic account of the entire world. So whatever generation the person is born in, not only do they have their own karma, their own things to resolve and their own strengths and weaknesses, but also on top of that, you have to bear the samashti karma. Therefore, it's much harder to kind of navigate yourself, but you have to nevertheless. So now it becomes a little bit more easier to understand why, even though you have good accounts, right, and good life and have reasonable amount of knowledge, still you could be working at a place that doesn't share the values that you share. That's samashti karma. So you could have recognition that what's going on is not honest. It's not for the well-being of the employees and the customers. You could recognize that. But do you have a choice to make any real difference? A little bit. But is there a guarantee that you will? Not necessarily, because the samashti karma, the collective is much higher than one single individual. Therefore, now you have to compromise and you have to say, well, I have to work at this job because if I don't, I will lose the money, even though it's not completely keeping with my values or it's not completely ethical. So you have to make a compromise. Remaining there, but what little can I do to minimize the effects that, you know, I think that this company is causing? So we have in the Vedas called prayashchita karma. Prayashchita karma, that means you can negate that papam that you're getting because of your samashti karma, that you have to participate. You can negate the effects of that through prayashchita karma. That means through charity, through doing something for other people, through mostly through dhanam. That's why dhanam is such a huge part, charity in the Vedas. You know, something that you can give to people. So you can negate those effects through prayashchita karma.
So I just want to say the collective, but if you're drawn to a place where your values are different than theirs, then isn't there, I don't want to say a law, but something about it's like what they mirror to you, something in yourself. So you still work on like changing yourself to have an effect on that?
I think what you're saying is that sometimes we're attracted to certain places because they represent the values that we also have not completely, our unconscious attractions are being drawn to that place. And that place is exuding those unconscious attractions. So maybe that's one reason that you feel innocently attracted to these places that may not be of the highest value, but there's some opportunity to draw out those unconscious, unresolved things in yourself and work through them. And that place happens to be just the place that's able to do that. That could be one answer.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Otherwise, if it's not allowing you to flourish, if it's not allowing you to look into your weaknesses or to make some changes, then you can make a decision. You can say, well, this is not the right place for me. Yeah. For example, I used to, early on, I went to these spiritual retreats, and you go by yourself and you don't know anyone there. So I said, I'm just going to stay for some time, and I'm going to be in this vulnerable place where I don't know anyone until I make a friend with somebody. And it's not comfortable to be in that place, right? Where you got no one to talk to. But I stood there for a while until I formed some connection. And just that time of being uncomfortable and being okay with that, that makes it, that is healing for you. That is healing for you. Because otherwise we just don't want to be surrounded by people, always like, why? Why am I not okay being by myself? See? So like this, we have to learn both sides. I'm okay by myself. I'm also okay with other people. That's why Krishna says, samatvam yoga uchyate. Equanimous in both success and failure, in this and that. We think this karma is predetermined. We think it's prescripted, that I'm supposed to experience these joys in my life and these sufferings in my life. This is so deeply ingrained in cultures. It's so hard to get out of people's minds. It really is. It's even in Advaita Vedanta, same problem. Like, my life is scripted. My life is, supposed to work out like this. And it creates a dull and passive mind. It's like the third fish, that story, where the fisherman was coming to fish, and the sattvic fish says, we have to do something right now. And the first fish, the sattvic, did the right thing, right? I'm going to save myself. I'm going to warn my friends. We need to move. Tornado's coming. The second fish was a little bit more rajasic, says, no, let's wait it out. I'll think of something when the time comes. Why are you waiting so long? You got all of the time now. This is equanimous. Okay, I'll tell you, it's like this. When do most people make a change? When do they finally make a change?
When they're forced to by the circumstance.
Which is never pleasant. That means I'm waiting till the last moment when there's no choice, when you are least clear, because all of the anxiety is now going on, because you're so close to that moment of my finances are running out, and this is the heartbreak is there, the relationship is breaking down. You're least clear during this moment. And I'm waiting for that moment when I had so many years in peace, in quiet, in all of the time in the world to think what is to be done. It's amazing. That's the second fish. And the third fish uses a statement called, what is meant to be will be. Whatever is meant to happen will happen. Now, look at this. There's a lot of value in that statement. But when did that fish make that statement? After it applied kartum shakyam, akartum shakyam, anyata kartum shakyam, or before? When did it make that statement? It made it before it applied an action. You see the difference? Yes, it's true. Whatever will happen will happen. But when am I making that statement? After I've applied and done what is to be done, or before? That's the tamastic fish. It made that statement, which sounds wise, before it even applied self-efforts. That's why we say any outcome that you ever get in your life consists of three factors. Prayatna. Prayatna means self-effort. It consists of a kala. That means there's a time lag between the time I put my self-effort into the field and when I get a result. And kripa. Kripa means grace. All these three factors are involved in getting what the final outcome is. Grace, of course, is as a result of your consistent efforts on and on and on. That gives you a grace. So prayatna, self-effort, kala, time lag between the effort that I put into the field and when I get the result, there's a patience factor there, and kripa, grace. Self-effort, time lag, and Ishwara's grace. All three contribute to your final outcome, not just one. Therefore, in anything that I do, there is always two components involved. One, prarabdha, that means the push of those past causes. The results of those past causes are always fructifying in the present moment, always, even today. Prarabdha karma. But in that prarabdha karma, there's always a second factor, which is even more powerful. If you apply those three, do something, not do something, do something different, which is your own free will. Purushartha, free will, and prarabdha, the push of past causes. Don't forget this. Otherwise, the moment I forget, I become the third fish, and I say these wise statements that don't make sense. And I want to close this and show you that it's not possible to categorically say it's my karma. Three stories. The first story, I said this before, where Bhishma was killed by Shikandi, and Shikandi was Amba, right? Amba in the previous life. And he took her and her two sisters to marry off his brother, half-brother called Vichitravirya. So he went to a different King Salva's palace. He stole three women. One of them was Amba. And he says, okay, the three of you, you're now going to marry my brother Vichitravirya. Now, the two of them said, okay. But the third one, Amba, says, sorry, my heart is already placed in King Salva. You have to take me back to the palace. Bhishma complied and took her back. Now, King Salva rejected her because she was already spoiled. And she came back to Bhishma, and Bhishma also didn't want her. So now she found herself without a husband. And she spent her whole life practicing tapas to take revenge onto Bhishma. Talk about spending your time wisely on earth. Spending, for what, 40 years planning somebody's revenge. Totally unwise. But anyway, so she did that. And next life, she, now a man, Shikandi, killed Bhishma. So in this example, you could say that was Bhishma's karma. That was his, right? That was his product of past causes, okay? So this we can accept. The second example shows you that you cannot apply past life onto what happens now. Pandu, out of his own negligence, accidentally shot the sage and his wife. Now, the sage and his wife cursed Pandu. Now, can you say that the sage and the wife were meant to suffer, and Pandu just happened to be an instrument, like a pen, who was fulfilling the suffering that the sage was meant to experience? Can't do that. Because why would an instrument suffer why would an instrument be cursed to work out somebody else's karma? I didn't do anything wrong. If I was just an instrument, why was I cursed then? But Pandu was cursed, wasn't he? He was cursed. Next time you see Madri, you will die on the spot. And he died on the spot. So in this case, you cannot say that it was Pandu's past life that punished him, but rather Pandu's negligence in this life that was created for the first time that caused Pandu to suffer. Whereas with Bhishma, why did Bhishma die? Why did he suffer? Because of past life. But in this case, Pandu, why did he suffer? Because of his own negligence for the first time ever. So it's got no connection to past life. And the third example is where Krishna tells to the Pandavas, look, Duryodhana and the Kauravas are consistently being unfair to you. And that is because you Pandavas have done some bad things to some other people, and now you just have to work out through your prarabdha karma. You have to suffer, and you just have to take all of these unfair treatments from the Kauravas. This is your karma. Is this what Krishna said to the Pandavas? No. He says, don't philosophize. Whether this is your karma of the past life or the present, it doesn't matter. Set boundaries and do what you have to do. Don't philosophize about it. Whether it's your prarabdha or your purushartha, it doesn't make any difference at the end of the day. The point is, this is happening right now. What do I have to do to solve the problem? That's Krishna and the Pandavas. So now, can you categorically state out of these three examples that this is, I am suffering because of my past life? Or I am suffering because it is only created in this life? No. Perhaps the third example is the most practical. Whether it's past life or this life, doesn't matter. I have choice. What do I need to do to make my life more harmonious and bring us together and make, to problem solve whatever is going on? Therefore, life is never just one. It is both purushartha and prarabdha karma. Okay? Now, your homework, besides that question that I asked, is also this. Here's a question. How will it help you knowing that life is governed by non-negotiable laws? How does it help you knowing that your life is governed by non-negotiable laws, unbiased laws? How will it help you knowing that your life is governed by unbiased, impartial laws? Think about this. What does it mean to live knowing this now? Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.